Welcome to the WOR for the first round of Tier 5 PC Lobby. Unfortunately, we ran into some technical difficulties while we're trying to get the stream up and running for Qualifying 1 here at Las Vegas. Today, I am joined by my fellow commentator, but I'm not quite sure how to say the name of at the moment. How are you doing today?
Oh, go, Torium. Just Z works. Glad to be back behind the mic for World Online Racing, this time around for Tier 5. I've missed sim racing so much, and when's the better time to get back in if it's not at the start of a season here at WOR?
Yes, as we are getting underway with qualifying, 10 minutes left in the session already. Due to those technical difficulties, we find ourselves with Suki Unoda leading the way in the Red Bull with a 1030 as we see a collision into the wall by Christopher Goda on his lap. But as the eyes should be on the standings as they are at the moment, in second place, Pascal Galgil with a 133 in second. Michael Hendrich for Red Bull again in P number 3. Followed by Duke Dennis, Nemesis, Zozo, Matteo, Noah, Alberto, Max in P10, Christopher, AMG Ken, DLX, Mr. Pizza, Alberto Condosin, iFire, Chirisu, Giovanazzi, and Camper.
Yeah, I've been keeping tabs on, the board ever since shock qualifying started. Of course, early minutes here in shock qualifying, we get 18 minutes. The drivers get 18 minutes to set their fastest lap times. I always like to patiently wait for the last couple of minutes to see some of the late runners pull off a spectacular lap. So you always like to see someone who's not set a lap time throughout qualifying, and the last minute they top the leaderboard.
Yeah, sometimes the laps come in very late into the session, but it is currently Suki Yonoda on pole here at Las Vegas. A track that seems like it is very, very dominated by straights, and that wouldn't be wrong. But there is some technicality to this circuit, and with the high speed, there's a lot of room to get very dangerous collisions into the wall. But Chirizu finds a solid improvement even with the characteristics as we ride on board with Michael hitting the outside wall on his lap and ruining that attempt and potentially picking up some damage.
Well, on the bright side, better now rather than the race itself. Better now rather than the last couple of minutes of shock qualifying even.
Yeah, at least he has a chance to get back in the pit lane and set one more lap for himself. As we follow Suki Yonoda to see if he can take back that top spot on qualifying, as we've seen an improvement from Nemesis to rise to P number 4.
I don't know how much of sim racing you do, Veltorium, but one thing's for sure, drivers quite literally enjoy Sector 2 going into Sector 3, long straights, opportunity to get those overtakes in. And if it's anything, hopefully we get to see a lot of overtakes heading into the race.
Yeah, definitely seen some overtakes on that huge back straight. Only issue here out at Las Vegas is the straight can sometimes be a little bit too long to deliver high quality racing action, as people open that DRS quite far down the straight, but typically find themselves overtaking before that braking zone.
Yeah, that tends to be a problem every now and then. I've seen a couple of races go down to the wire, even 4 abreast heading into the finish line, sometimes even. But with that, we're about 6 minutes or so left into shock qualifying. Chrisu still holds top spot, 1 minute 30.157. You can already see a couple of the runners close by aren't too far off. So it looks like it's going to be a close one here at Tier 5 tonight.
So far, so close. As you have mentioned, only 200 splitting the top 2, and the gap down to P17, only a field spread of 0.5 of a second. As we are watching Noah burning his energy down this back straight, topping out at 211 miles an hour. Highest top speeds we see across the entire calendar on this track when you get a multi-slipstream. Though with the little bit of characteristical corners, you do find yourselves not always finding the top speeds without slipstream at this circuit. But because the wings aren't as trimmed out as they are at Monza, sometimes the DRS can be that much more powerful.
Yep, and we've seen that on more than one occasion in the past. If you've been actively in sim racing, I'm sure. I always like to spot a couple of team runners who are right up the time sheets together. And it looks like it's Max and Pascal in the Aston Martins, who I see both in the top five. I'm curious to see if there are other team matchups close together. Right now, I see McLaren as well, but far down the timesheets even. Yeah, you get to see most of the drivers in the pits now, right before they come out for that one last lap around Las Vegas to set that lap to get that grid spot ahead of the race. I see only Zozo out on track along with Camper in the Haas.
Yeah, and Christopher coming out on an outlap of his own, potentially trying to find some clear air. Though, as we do mention clear air, this isn't necessarily the type of circuit where clear air is the issue at hand. Similar to tracks like Spa and Silverstone, there tends to be plenty of width at the tracks where you need to get out of the way, and the tracks are long enough to support all 20 cars out on the track at the same time. Especially with that long straight, it just gives you plenty of room just to let anyone by without impeding their laps.
Speaking of the long straight, it's in the back straight. We see two cars coming together, almost one on an outlap, one on a fast lap. I wonder how this is going to go down. Let's hope nothing crazy happens. Camper's the one. It seems Camper was on a fast lap, but hasn't validated it. So I guess nothing to worry about there. He's off back into the pits. Final 3 minutes of shock qualifying. I wonder who takes pole.
Gonna ride on board with Christopher Goda as we wait for other drivers to come out on track. Sweeping through the back end of that right-hander can be agonizing weight to get onto throttle through that corner at times. And then it's onto one of the many straights here as you get into a very tight corner. But again, the wall, we've seen a couple of taps already in this session, but you want to hug it close to make it as short as possible. Then you go into a tight left-right flick, but aggressively opens back up to allow you to take that tight left-hander, not as tightly as it seems on a track map, as you accelerate through a agonizing weight of a right-hander, but flows back left, causing a lot of DRS before the sharp turn. But you want to ride the curb, but not invalidate your lap over, as it potentially could catch you out, as how aggressively these drivers will be taking it. But then you burn all of that ERS that you save across the whole lap just to eke into the DRS zone. Realize you're only halfway down the strip in Las Vegas to reach a heavy braking zone as a bit of traffic comes into the site. As it is at the end of the lap though, it should be a clear run and a decent amount of slipstream for Christopher on this lap time, but ends up backing out of it and doesn't find an improvement this time around.
Yeah, he locked up the rear and kissed the wall in sector 1. Not the best start to a fast lap, but he tried. I'm pretty sure he learned a little bit off of that one. He's still 12th fastest. He's in the thickness of the action come the race. He's going to be at least, but now we get to see pretty much the entire grid out on track on their outlaps, some on their fast ones. This is the moment, folks, the moment we've been waiting for. The first shock qualifying of Season 22 here in Tier 5 WOR League is going to come to an end, and we're going to find out who's going to be on top.
As we watch Max Wegler's as the leading car on track on those on the flying laps, leading the way to set the pace at the end of this session, then will it be an improvement in time for the Aston Martin, or will it be enough to even hold off this tight session in P number 3? Good position for the Aston Martin so far, highest positioning duo on the grid in tier number 5, though it would be great if he could punch it even higher, hitting 213 miles an hour down that back straight.
You know, I'd like to think that a couple of these drivers out there are still sandbagging early into this qualifying session, or at least were. We're in the final minutes. Now's the time I really want to see them coming out with the punches. You can already see from our timesheet itself, everyone's so close to one another, and you can see the top 3 all within hundredths of a second with each other. I wonder if anyone can take Chris's spot. Looks like Max has called it quits to shock qualifying.
Yeah, you saw him twitching at the end of his lap, not happy with how the lap was going for himself. on that back end. Clearly not finding a time improvement as well. Stuck in P number 3. Nemesis doesn't find a time improvement on his second lap, on his last lap as well. As we ride on board with Pascal locking up the tyres a little bit into the sharp left-hander, but it's just a short shoot now through the back of the circuit to the line. We've seen a huge improvement from Michael, jumping to P number 1 with a 1:29.9. Pascal jumps to line up next to his teammate as both Red Bulls lock out the front row with not much time left in the session. Both nearly in the sub 130s.
There we go. That's that late, late shots I was hoping to see. It looks like it's the two Red Bull drivers after all. I wonder if anyone's gonna get a nick of either one of those spots up in front. We still got about 5 drivers on their fast laps, so I don't see any kind of improvement from any of them.
Yeah, as we're watching on the Matteo, one of the last cars to come across the line. Only Zozo behind. He finds an improvement for P number 4. Shoots up above Chirizu, as it's just Zozo who comes across the line at the back of the top 10.
Yeah, another one of the drivers who nicked that third grid spot on the grid, of course, ahead of the Las Vegas race was Duke Dennis of CS. So seems like the Williams drivers are right up there in the top 6, both of them even, much like the Red Bull drivers. But it seems like Michael's the one who got it spot on, even though we saw his teammate Suki up on top. 1 minute 29.935 for Mike and Heydrich to nab pole position here in the Las Vegas race to start off season 22.
Yeah, and a late lap improvement, dropping really low down into 13th place even at one point, but it was just enough to find himself in pole on that final lap. Massive improvement coming out, only player below that 130. As we're quickly going to take a look at that season 21 calendar. Actually, that is the wrong calendar, so we're going to change it back over to this screen. Sorry about the graphics not being completely accurate. First race then here at the WOR is at Las Vegas, as we have already witnessed the qualifying of this session. But plenty of tracks this season for your guys' attention here in Tier 2 as we were waiting for the lobby to progress forward. Though Las Vegas as an opener, what's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, this is the kind of race you want to get the season going with, right? Yeah, the drivers are as energetic as you can imagine, and we are here in the comms box just as much as friends of the drivers who tune in during as well as after the race. And there's no other track barring Monaco, which is like a personal favorite, even though the drivers absolutely hate it. Being one of the races that I like to see a season start. I'm going to get a lot of hate from the drivers, but I'll take it. Something about Monaco I enjoy watching. Regardless, we're here for Vegas, and we've got the Red Bull drivers in Tier 5 lining up on the top spots at the very front of the pack today. And I am excited. Do you have a personal favorite team at all, Veltorium?
A personal favourite of mine in real life is also that of the Red Bulls, though it is quite annoying to see that the dominance that they had in the last few seasons, though it's not happening this year, seems to have transitioned into the game world for us in tier number 5, looking at that front row as you mentioned, though unlike real life, McLaren not being fortunate enough to be in that top 10, and Aston Martin's finding huge improvements compared to their real life consistency and having 2 in the top 6.
Yeah, it's funny sometimes how the digital mimics IRL. But here for Tier 5, at least I'd like to see heading into the race. I think I spotted a Ferrari somewhere in there. They're my personal favorites, but let's not even open that can of worms right now. I'm just hopeful to see one hell of a race going into turn 1. The action's going to be crazy, as you could imagine, as it is every time here in WOR League. And hopefully we get to see the drivers all lined up on the grid soon enough, and I think we just did.
Yes, as the lights tick on at the front of the grid. No formation lap for you guys today. Michael Hendricks taking the start already for us, leading away as ghosting for both of the Red Bulls at the front of the grid leads us off of the lights.
Yeah, 3 abreast in the mid of the field. That's where the action is, as I mentioned early on. And there you go, Noah up 2 positions or so. And he is catching up to the front of the pack. There's contact between the 3 in the midfield. That's Matteo, Noah, Christoph. They're going wheel to wheel here in Vegas and into the next corner. I just wonder if anyone's going to go off to a spin. Looks like they're not. Everyone's keeping it clean. And that's exactly what we want to see in sim racing. But I see a couple of them off, and mainly Noah, again, down a position or 2.
Yeah, lots of drivers scrobbling all across the track. 2 wide still at the back with these McLarens and the Ferraris. But eyes turn to the front as the possible race strategies for this race, aiming towards a one-stop on the 25 laps here on the streets of Vegas as we approach the iconic strip for the first of many laps here tonight. Michael leads the way. Suki falling in behind Zozo, who is already on that back end with that huge slipstream, as you're going to see. Maybe he finds an opportunity, but lower back in the grid. A bit of a slipstream chain is forming as 1/10 is behind Alberto. Behind them, Ferrari sends it down the inside as well, and the chaos already ensuing.
Yeah, no short of action in the midfield as anyone could predict, but I'm on board Ken Fisher now as Michael Heidrich nabs the fastest lap, as you'd imagine. He is leading the race after all. Couple of unconventional racing lines there on the main straight. Ever so to make those passes count. I think 3 drivers or so gained a position, and the positions are going to keep going up because Alberto Barros goes up to P16 at the back of the pack. Action all around.
Action all around is the duty course here at Las Vegas. As you see the Ferraris in front trying to make a move on to Noah and make a bit of a progress through this race. Both Ferraris not in the top 10 at the moment, but Red Bull still leading the way with Zozo splitting them up. Williams in P4 and 5. Tactical game in front of the Aston Martin duo as well. Constructors' odds for a battle is looking favourable at the moment.
Yeah, sure does. By the looks of it, Zozo splitting those Red Bulls was something I did not see coming, but he's managed to get it done. I think Chrisu seems to be the faster one of the 2 Williams as we speak. I wonder if they're going to be so great, if Duke Dennis of CS is going to be so gracious to let his teammate by. I highly doubt that, but nice to see the Aston Martins right up there as well. Top 10 looking stacked. I just wonder if anyone's gonna break that top 10 up. I see a lot of drivers out there locking up this early on into the race, heading into Sector 3, and not much of change apart from that.
Yeah, at the moment, we see Duke Dennis steal away that fastest lap down a few positions in P number 4, getting a little bit of breathing air for that lap. But both McLarens making contact, a little bit ironically similar to real life races recently. Hopefully this does not happen out in Vegas. This would be an upset of a performance in real life. But here at WOR, this might be just where they have to settle in. Currently, a huge DRS train, so we see Mr. Pizza at the back of the grid, retired out of the race. Unfortunate to see one already DNF'd, as the entire grid is still within sub 1 seconds of each other.
Yeah, tough to see a retirement this early on into a race at the very first season, race early into the season. Regardless, Ken Fisher was the opportunistic one out of that lot. While the 2 McLarens fought, he split them apart quite literally on the timesheets. He finds himself up in a P14. Action in the front is reduced quite a bit. I think the drivers up in front have decided to lean back a little bit and ease into those tires and make sure they last their life.
Yeah, but we see Max get a huge run onto the back of this Williams, who's going to be trying to get that slipstream onto his teammate to keep the defense. As we see in the background, the Kick Sauber having a offensive charge against Alberto Candonsin. But right now, everyone has such equal pace that everyone is just stuck in a DRS train. Even with that back straight, if you have DRS on the one in front of you, it's still always going to be hard to make that move stick.
Yeah, tricky positions to be in. Speaking of tricky positions to be in, Matteo isn't the one you want to be right now out on track. He's lost 4 positions since the start of the race. Meanwhile, Christoph gained 4 positions. And that's the kind of racer you want to be, up in a P8 from P12 this early on. We're only on lap number 4, folks. Don't go anywhere. Christoph is locking up his rear, but he still holds on to P8.
Sideways contact with the Alpine as the McLaren tries to force his way through. Now drifting back into his teammate. Potential floor damage picked up by either driver, but no clear, evident front wing damage on either of these cars.
McLarens are really getting their elbows out there, aren't they?
Yeah, very tough racing from Vose, but a bit closer to his teammate is Chirizu this time around. Hopefully a little bit safer from the Astons behind, as Suki Yunoda is leaving closer onto the back of Zozo. 2 attempts as we hit the DRS part of the strip on lap number 4. Can he finally make a move, or is it just going to be a bit of a parade as these drivers all come to the back end of the circuit once again?
Suki ever so close to Zozo. I don't think he's too happy losing that position this early on into the race. He'd rather find himself right behind his teammate. He gets closer and closer and closer at every part of the lap, but somehow can't get that move done. Another one of the drivers who are that close is way at the back. Alberto Barros makes the move on DLX Power, but can he stick it is the question. Looks like he's got it in the bag after all. He's up at a P15.
Yeah, DLX suffering now after trying to make that move on Ken Fisher, potentially with some floor damage, dropping his pace back relatively strongly now. But as we jump forward, Matteo is very close to the back of Christopher at the moment, as behind him you see a slide out of the RB of Alberto Condonsin. But right now, only a gap that has started to form is Nemesis in P number 12, dropping out a DRS of Noah, and slowly backing everyone else behind him out of the top 11 contention and separating it into 2 different trains.
Yeah, it seems like Nemesis is really splitting this pack in 2, quite literally. Chrisu was breathing down the gearbox of Duke Dennis of CS up in front, and he locks up and goes off track. Opportunity for Max to nab that spot, and nab that spot he does. 2 positions gained so far, but can he keep that spot as Chrisu comes fighting right on back? Too long the straight you said early on, and too long it was for Max. He fails to hold on to that position. Can he attack right on back if Chrisu locks that up too much? Looks like he did. Looks like he gets to keep that spot after all. P5 Chrisu, how long can you hold on to that? Because Max comes right back in Sector 3. May not make that pass on the start finish straight, and we'll have to settle for P6.
Yeah, unable to make a run, everyone having slipstream, but a slide does bring Max again back onto the rear of Chirizu, finding some issues on these last 2 laps. Maybe starting to burn up the tyre wear as well with these slides that he is finding himself issue with. Aston Martin dipping out, trying to find a gap as 3 drivers super close on track. But Christoph still leading away in P number 9, defending his spot in the back end of the top 10 points.
Yeah, Noah's getting antsy out there behind Alberto and Christoph. He is breathing down these 2 cars. His gearbox is real close. I've said that one too many times perhaps, but Noah's getting very impatient, and now might just be the moment. Heading into Sector 2 might just be the moment for Noah to get 2 spots, get 2 birds with 1 stone. But it'd be hard to make a pass like this.
Ooh,
on a track like this. He kisses the wall too.
More action between the second Williams and both Aston Martins. Back onto this back straight again. Will it be Chirizu on the offense or defense? As it's going to be 3 wide on the strip. Max losing out position to both of them, losing DRS to the drivers out in front by taking the position early. Ends up favouring Chirizu with that DRS, and Aston Martins end up switching out positions.
Yeah, Max is probably scratching his head thinking, how did Pascal get in front of me? How did that happen?
Unfortunate for him, but he was the one who tried to make the decisive move. It didn't stick this time around. Noah trying to find himself the long way around this Mercedes that is starting to thwart his potential as he's getting a little bit antsy on that rear end now. But Camper, first one into the pits to retire out of this race. Second retirement so far here today. as Suki Yonoda did get past Zozo, and the Red Bull starting to pull a gap out in front.
Yeah, something we might have missed. Zozo lost out on that P2 spot. Suki quietly nabs the spot that he was holding earlier on. Smarts by the Red Bull drivers, as you'd imagine, as they have been in shock qualifying, as we got to see. Sector 1 is briefly yellow. I wonder why. Maybe one of the back... yeah, that's just campers. Coastal car, I'd imagine. F1 being F1. Regardless, the action continues. Drivers on track continue to lock up through sector 2 particularly, and of course the one driver that's getting the most amount of spots in this race is Christoph, who's got Noah not too far behind.
Yeah, but it's really Michael breaking away at the front now. 1.7 seconds out in front. But maybe it's better to keep your pace a little bit slower. Keep Suki Yonoda in this slipstream, as Zozo is on the back of him with no DRS protection. But that's potentially why Suki Yonoda gets past in the first place, due to that DRS being broken.
Yeah, action at the back of the pack. Alberto Barros breathing down the gearbox of that McLaren. Oh, so close they are as they cross the start finish line. Lock up ahead by one of the Racing Bulls, and positions get swapped. Multiple positions get swapped. It's hard to keep up, but we keep up regardless, and the Ferrari gets a short end of the stick, much like real life. After all, the McLaren nabs 2 spots. AMG up into P11.
And Pascal makes a mistake that drops himself rapidly down the order, now outside the points, causing a bit of chaos in this queue behind him, as the Ferrari is still on the inside of Nemesis, dropping even more positions from that P11-12 spot, now into P14, as Alberto Barras gets past him, and some gaps finally out on track, starting to break these toes. But it's just causing chaos to Spike yet again, as AMG is going to be hounding on the back of Pascal Gill, though the pace should be in his hand if he has enough ERS to deploy this time around.
I hope whatever happened to Pascal wasn't with Max, his teammate there. I'm pretty sure that'll be an unpleasant conversation. Regardless, he's finds himself down in P11, not the best. Meanwhile, Matteo on the hards, the only runner... yeah, one of only 2 runners in the top 10 with hard tires, already battling it out, gets alongside Max. He wants that spot, and the spot he gets, but can he keep it? Still wheel to wheel with Max. He's gotten ahead, and Max goes straight into the pits. Opportunistic, maybe. Regardless, we're going to see how this turns out. Max up in a P5.
Yeah, quite early of a pit stop coming out from Max, but clearly seeing those tires slip away from him as the hards of Matteo starting to pay off some dividends at this portion of the race.
Yeah, we see 3 drivers into the pits, all hard runners. All medium runners are coming out on hards for now. They're going to find themselves at the back of the pack, and so Pascal is going to have company of his teammate yet again.
Yeah, and it's the top 3 behind Michael, being 2, 3, 4, now leading the way without a few drivers who have dipped into the pits. But Michael, 2 seconds in the lead. Currently, your outstanding driver who's been able to break that DRS gap, often than that get formed due to the pitters by Matteo, and whatever happened between the Aston Martins.
I wonder if there's one driver that gained out of that, and probably was AMG, who was on a move on Alberto Barros and managed to get another spot in the process. He finds himself in the point scoring positions, but he's on medium tires, so I wonder how long that's going to last. Regardless, closest 2 drivers on track right now seemingly is Alberto Barros and AMG, perhaps even Noah and Matteo up in front, still half a second between the 2. And yeah, peculiarly, a lot of drivers locking up in Sector 2.
Yeah, and it seems like neither of the drivers have gotten DRS between Max and Christopher on this back straight then, as more people and your race leader come into the pits, as this is a little bit early, but it is decently into the race. They're gonna have to make it quite a long way on this hard set tires though.
Yeah, they're playing the cards that they are dealt by the looks of it. All coming in, all gonna go out on hard tires. Suki Yonoda trying to make sure there's no double stacking happening over at Red Bull, stays out. Ken Fisher, the only other driver out there with a medium set, still out on track.
Ken Fish, the hard tyre runners leading the way on their alternate strategy. Not with a little bit of clear air at the moment on track, as drivers like Michael does find himself a 3-second window behind iFire to try lay down that rubber and get that lap tire and tires up to speed. Though drivers like Chirizu, Max and Christopher finding themselves a little bit down behind the pack.
Folks watching now live as well as after, make sure you hit that like as well as hit subscribe on WOR League. Races like this keep on coming and action like this keeps coming week on week as Noah makes the pass on Matteo for P2. And Matteo not having the best of times out there on the hard tires. He's finding himself P3 for now.
And you see Chirizu on the back end of his overtake, making a stunning move on the back end of the straight onto Zozo. Makes it look easy to put Zozo outside of the net P4 positions.
Yeah, into the pits comes Suki Unoda for a fresh set, as you'd expect. His teammate having wrapped up a pit stop last lap. Ken Fisher, however, pretty comfortable on the mediums, apparently out on track. Alberto Barros, I wonder what went wrong there as Nemesis makes the pass. Can he make it stick? Stick he does, up in a P4.
Yeah, Nemesis finding himself going forward, which is not the trajectory he's found himself very often this race. AMG still stuck behind Alberto Candosin at the moment, but bit of a gap starting to form out on track, and Michael has already found himself onto the back end of this Ferrari, who is yet to pit.
Yeah, out of the Aston Martins at the back of the pack, seems like Max is really getting to grips with the hards, whereas Pascal hasn't had the best moment ever since that pit stop, as well as that incident. Still finds himself P18. I wonder if he's going to get any better from here. You can see the gaps are extending beyond half a second, in some cases even beyond a second. But right now, the action, of course, is Alberto Candosin in the Racing Bulls making that pass on Max after all. Seems like Max is ghosted. I hope he's not disconnected, but a pass it is. Up in a P15 goes Alberto, and up in a P11 seemingly is Zozo. I'm making that pass on to Chriso.
Yeah, it's difficult to track all of the action. Sometimes it seems like Max did disconnect him to get that rejoin message, and he drops so far down. Aston Martin's breaking up the rear of the track after they was so far up in the grid, taking up those top 6 positions as Zozo sets fastest lap of the race as he gets past that Williams that time around.
A hint to what's to come in this second leg of this race, perhaps. Zozo, he's running P10, fastest lap even. I wonder what happens as we tick down to lap 25. We're right now on lap 12, folks. Noah in the Haas leads this race ahead of Matteo and Nemesis for the top 3 positions. Lest we forget, some of them are on different tire strategies. I wonder how the Williams drivers are going to do as we go on lap after lap after lap.
Yeah, currently trying to chase down number 1 is Matteo on this hard spot after Noah takes it away. Got a long straight ahead of him, and a long straight that keeps catching us off guard by how easy it is to make these overtakes. You just gotta find yourself on the straight at the right time with clear air and no one else to supply the rest of the car in front. But we see Chirizu pick up a multiple warnings penalty. Unfortunately for him, Nemesis playing on the defense as Alberto Barras gets on the offense and makes the move. Stick for P number 3 this time around.
Yeah, it's what we like to see right after pit stops. And Michael Heydrich, meanwhile, made that move onto DLX Power. Up into P6 he goes, so he's making his climb back to the front. And so does Duke Dennis of CS. Makes that pass on high fire to Stick and is up at a P8. Zozo not too far behind. Gets alongside even of the Ferrari for a brief moment. Ferrari loses a bit of traction off the corner. And right back in there is Zozo up in a P9. Looks like there's been a speeding in the pit lane penalty, 10-second time penalty for Max, but the battles continue out on track. Zozo up in a P9 and he's hunting Duke Dennis of CS.
Haven't seen this driver much on track at the moment, but getting passed by Michael Heydrich, making a striving run to get out in front of this race and lead the pack by a large margin once these hard tires have pit. is Michael Hendrick slicing through the field with these grippier, fresher tires, and he's starting to make it look easy.
That's the kind of sophistication you'd expect from drivers who
Whoa.
get spot on laps. Regardless, enough of that chatter. Here comes Nemesis, Heydrich, Alberto Barros going down the order. Can't face the Red Bull and the Ferrari. Perhaps he can. He gets into the mix, 3 abreast perhaps. There's been contact between the two before. There's been contact now, but the Red Bull gets in front, so does the Mercedes. Nemesis gets the short end of the stick. And as a Ferrari fan, this hurts. But as someone who's commentating T5, this is an absolute treat. Alberto Barros leads ahead of Nemesis. Michael Heydrich, however, up in a P3.
Yeah, Alberto Barros gets completely sideways in that tight left-hander before the straight, but the straight is so long, he's able to recover it. DRS detection zone goes in his favor, and he's able to make it back past Nemesis to keep position outside of those on a different strategy.
Yeah, Nemesis' rear is kicking out quite a bit as he goes into the first corner. Wonder what might be the case. I've seen that happen twice already. Regardless, Michael Heydrich, what a way to make the climb back into P3. The action continues in the mid of the pack, of course. Zozo, Duke Dennis, CS, Chrisu, those battles have been going on for a while. Looks like Zozo in the Alpine has nicked not just one, but both the Williams.
Yeah, and going side by side through nearly the entire first sector. There's Alberto Gendosin, but Christopher comes out on top on the back end. As back round now, as we approach the Las Vegas Strip again, is Noah and Mateo. Only a few laps away, you've got to start thinking before they are going towards the pits.
Ooh, Chrisu on DLX power. That battle was gonna get real tricky as he met the wall, but Chrisu's coming back on DLX, weaves to the right hand side of the track, gets alongside. Can he keep that position though? Too long of a straight. Could this be one of those? Oh, who is that? Suki Yonoda out of nowhere picks off DLX power along with Chrisu.
Yeah, and looking back even further down in P number 14, it's 3 wide for a moment, but it's Christopher losing out to Ken Fisher and Alberto at the rear end of the grid. After just making the move stick, he just has to, he gets reset again, and now it's Ken Fisher making the move already through the last turn. As we go back towards turn number 1, can he go back to the right? No, gets late move to block him off as some of these hard set drivers finally diving into the pit lane. As action continues, as Zozo now is making a move onto Alberto Barros, who has yet to pit, to make his way into the top 3 on track, and a gap has formed between Alberto and Noah during this sequence.
We're on lap 15, folks, and as you could tell, there's battles all around. Michael Heydrich pulled off a move on Noah to regain the lead of this race. He's up in a P1. Zozo right up there. Noah holding on as much as he can with 14 laps on those hard tires. Battles in the front, battles in the mid of the pack, and battle at the back. This is what we want to see.
Right now, Red Bull and Williams contesting the top 5 positions, but that pesky Alpine of Zozo is denying the 1-2 finish for Red Bull and denying a double podium for Williams. Can any of them catch up to the back of Zozo and claim that second step, or is it going to be a battle to the line for that 3rd place on the podium?
Michael Heydrich leads, but what about his teammate? Well, Suki Yonoda has Chrisu in his sights and might just be able to pick him off come the next corner or so, or perhaps even before. There's contact between the two, and the Mercedes is in the mix. Alberto Barros might have just lost that position to Chrisu and might have just played into the hands of Suki Yonoda even. Doesn't lose just one position, but loses 2.
Yeah, and action continues as we now round back to this next DRS zone, but both drivers have DRS, so it's gonna be neutralized. But Suki Yonoda makes it stick on the sliding rear end of this Mercedes driver after Chirizu finds his way through.
You can see the action really cornering up the pack rather than at the back. Clearly gaps becoming bigger and bigger in the midfield. Regardless, the action continues courtesy of Suki Yonoda. He's hunting down Chrisu and he's got Alberto Barros right on his tail.
Yep, as you just said. But a lot of these drivers now that face the rear of the grid find themselves on the faster, softer, and fresher tires. So can drivers like Matteo, who lead the way with this alternate strategy, make their way through the field as Noah gets a 3-second penalty that's going to thwart his efforts on this alternate strategy. But it's now the Williams going side by side, and it's Chirizu who leads the way through on the back end of the grid.
We've seen Suki Unoda be the opportunistic one in oh so many occasions. With the Williams up in front fighting, you'd think he'd be opportunistic once again. Lines up alongside Duke Dennis's CS. Chrisu's made that pass earlier on his teammate. And Suki Unoda does one right after, but sends it sideways by mistake and loses that position. Not something you want to see. Not someone you want to be out on track.
Yeah, and that field spread coming in, as we've mentioned previously. Nemesis setting the fastest lap on those medium tyres, clearly showcasing anyone as they get a clean lap can set the pace in this race. Field spread between a majority of the drivers was only 0.6 of a second, even with that late improvement from Michael Heidrich.
Yeah, Alberto Candice, meanwhile, in the midfield, closing in on Ken Fisher. Christoph not too far behind. We've seen these three battle it out on more than one occasion so far. They're on lap number 17, so he's got all the time he needs to take this fight to Ken Fisher. Alberto Candice, will it be this lap is the real question. AMG not too far ahead either.
Yeah, due to that slide, Chirizu's been able to fully put his attention forward without having to look backwards, and it's allowed him to catch right back to the back of Zozo, but it's still eyes on Suki Unoda, trying to put up a defensive move against Duke of Dennis in that Williams. Surely he's going to be on alongside, and it's already by the braking zone, and it's Ken Fisher up to P6. Trying to bring the Alpines to the front of this grid in the mid to late stages of this race.
Yeah, there are multiple storylines being played out live right in front of you folks. Mind you, AMG and Ken Fisher, both drivers battling it out for P6. Both drivers have gained 7 positions in this race so far, the most than the rest of their driver peers out on track. And let's not forget, Suki Unoda started this race up in front alongside his teammate, so he's on a battle of redemption even in this race. He's breathing down the gearbox of a Williams. He's breathing down the gearbox of Williams for the past 3 laps at least, and he's not been able to make a position jump so far stick. He's still running P5.
Yeah, Suki Unoda desperately trying to get past. The moves are starting to get erratic. We've seen the twitches come out from him already, but it's just a moment of time really as you just wait for this back straight before he gets given another opportunity. 2/10 as we go through the corner, but he taps the wall. That's going to hinder his acceleration, but can he still make it sick on that acceleration down the iconic Las Vegas Strip across so many famous hotels, and it's already passed before the DRS zone. And as we turn our eyes further down the strip, no one quite side by side at the moment, but we do see Noah slicing past Pascal, which, as we have seen through this race, has been an unfortunate turn of events for both of the Aston Martins.
Yeah, a bit difficult one to swallow for them. Regardless, when there's one loser, there's always one winner, and that's why you get to see Ken Fisher and AMG right up there in the top 7. Suki Unoda has work cut out for him. He's got a 1.5 second gap to close in on Zozo. On the bright side, Zozo has had his hands full with Chrisu for a while now. Michael Heidrich leads this race as comfortable as you'd want to be at the start of the season, and he's got a comfortable 4.5 second lead to the closest driver. Chrisu battles in the midfield, AMG tumbling down the order. Wonder what's went wrong there.
AMG finds himself spinning off by potentially himself. Does he collect the wood and collect damage is the main important factor. Unfortunate slip, such far down the grid after such an amazing position he was in, making up all those positions, and all that effort has just been completely reset on him.
You know, there's going to be a section of sim racing fans and sim racers out there who might just blame AMG's performance a while ago to the commentator's curse. But it is what it is. Onwards to Ken Fisher, who's gained 7 positions in this race so far. P6, let's hope the commentator's curse doesn't hit him, or at least won't be accused of hitting him. Regardless, Zozo's still within a second of Chrisu. I'm surprised he hasn't dropped off yet. Duke Dennis of CS, though, has dropped off from Suki Unoda over a second's gap, and doesn't seem like it's going to be closing in any moment. It's lap number 20, folks, here at Las Vegas, race number 1 of season 22 of the WOR League Tier 5.
And the action is just continuing here, with a send down the inside from Alberto Barros on the inside of AMG, just compounding his issues. And on top of his fastest lap, he's trying to make something work, but goes really wide on exit. Though he still has that position and has made his way back up into P14.
Yeah, the action, the passes, the battles have seemingly moved to the back of the pack now. And we got all but, yeah, just 4 drivers, all within a second of each other, really battling it out for P13, but P13 at least, right? After all, every position counts, every bit of improvement counts, and AMG's rear kicks right back out from gaining 7 positions. He's ended up losing a position since the start, finds himself P15.
Yeah, we're right on board with Zozo to see the rear end of Chirizu step out on him after locking up, and now it's a perfect opportunity for Zozo to glide his way back into that P number 2, kept on the back of Chirizu for a long time, and a penalty haunting Chirizu, so his efforts to go forward thwarted at the moment, but can he make the move back onto Zozo as we come round the final turn? He sticks it on the inside and is back into P number 2.
Yep, lockups there, and straights that are perhaps too long for Zozo's liking. Regardless, it is Vegas, and it's Vegas that we'll get. Zozo has his work cut out for him if he wants to gain that position on that podium. 1 position spot up in the podium, of course. And Suki Unoda now within a second of Zozo. I don't think he's going to be happy about that. Zozo's going to be in a bit of a pickle come the last couple laps of this race.
Yeah, and I would like to send our eyes to this P number 8 defense of Christopher Goda. He's got Nemesis and Mateo, the leading drivers on that medium tire compound, followed by Noah, trying to make their way through. They've only got 5 laps remaining as Alberto Barras picked up a penalty for track limits. It is all down to the wire. Potentially still multiple positions for Nemesis, Mateo, and Noah to pick up on these medium compound tires.
Yeah, one must wonder what is Krizu out there really fighting for. He's got a 3-second time penalty, which will probably put him about P5 if we end the race like this. Regardless, on track, he loses that position almost instantly as they enter Sector 3. Zozo up in a P2. Krizu might just be planning a defensive position jump once again. Let Zozo have that position.
Oh.
He can get it right back, but there's been an incident at the back.
Yeah, as Christopher puts up a defensive effort, it's Noah who tries to find his way through Nemesis and Mateo before they can get past the Mercedes, and his move down the inside gets a little bit disrespected, and contact is found with the Ferrari of Nemesis, which spins him around and sends him to the back of the grid.
10 seconds to his name, and looks like he has retired even from this race. The race, however, continues up in front and at the back of the pack. Seemingly, Pascal and AMG side by side. Pascal's got his nose in front. It's AMG even up in a P13, but can he hold on to that? Can that McLaren hold on to that P13 position? He's gotten into a series of unfortunate events lately. Looks like this one's been the fortunate one of the lot.
Yeah, and it's Suki Yanoda finally catching up to within 5/10 for a moment of Zozo. Hitting the braking zone, Zozo locks up. This might be an opportunity now for Suki Yanoda to get onto the back of that Zozo. It's going to be down to the wire to see if he has DRS in that detection zone. As we make it to the DRS line in just a few meters time, no flap opens up, and it's Suki Yanoda rising back to P number 3. And with that penalty on the head of Chirizu, P2. He has almost locked down the 1-2 for Red Bull, but let's not call it too early.
Anything can happen, folks, as you've seen with AMG, as we've seen with Noah, and even Max for that matter, as this race was looking promising for them. Regardless, the action up in front continues. All eyes on Suki Unoda, Zozo, and let's not forget Ken Fisher, who's made it up the back, 7 positions so far, up in a P5. Duke Dennis Garcia still within a second, so he might just lose that position. And in the midfield, Christoph fending off Nemesis and Matteo. And at the back of the pack, Giovanni, MG, Pascal, and DLX Power.
Yeah, Christoph actually catching up to Alberto Candonson, creating a 4-car train for P number 7 behind the front leading trifecta of constructors. And it's all down to P7 between 4 different constructors. You have Red Bull, Williams, and Alpine leading the way. Aston Martin finding struggles, but they were up there at one point. But it's RB, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Sauber. 2 sets of hards, 2 sets of mediums. Who can find these last points, and who's going to score more or less? It is only a few opportunities left in the dying stages of this race, and the tyre wear starting to neutralize between the tyres.
This is the part where the drivers are sweating bullets, I'd like to think at least. This is the part I'm on the edge of my seat. We're on lap number 23, last couple of laps. It's the first race of the season. You want to start on a high if you're out there on track. This is where narratives a bit, the start of stories are being made. And it is terrifying the WOR League. We're here in Vegas. Michael Heidrich leads this race on lap number 24, as he has for the most part.
And no one finding a move on lap 23. 2 laps remaining here for the first round of the WOR. And it's Suki Yanoda in 3rd, Michael Hendricks leading the way. But Chirizu, unfortunately, in 2nd with that penalty, will drop him off of that podium position.
Yeah, all eyes on the midfield. Looks like they're going to get really elbows out here. Matteo lost 5 positions, might just be able to gain 1 still in the points. Nemesis right in the thick of the action. Christoph done a brilliant job at fending off some of these drivers, but he's got an opponent to catch. Alberto Candonson in sights, just 0.4 of a second splitting the two. And I wonder who can make that pass count, who can make these positions count this early on into the season. Let's not forget all point scoring positions, so they're gonna get their elbows out real good. P7, P8, P9, P10. I wonder what that order is gonna look come race end.
And it is intense through this entire race. Only a couple of drivers find themselves more than just a second shy of the driver in front. You got the leading packs of 6. Then it's Alberto Candonson, 4 seconds adrift. Alberto is the next that is off drift, but everyone else besides iFire at the rear is stuck in a train and is starting to get a little bit fiery, wanting to move forward in this race.
Okay, something I just spotted was Suki Unoda is the one of the top 3, the only one of the top 3 with over 80% battery left. He's got an opportunity in his hands come the final lap. As he starts that final lap, he's going to be breathing down Krizu up in front. He's got that position nailed, but what he wants to do is get closer to his teammate Michael Heidrich on this final lap. I don't think he will, but it's worth a shot. And if there's one time you want to take the shot, it's the final lap.
Yeah, and the gap between Nemesis and Christoph is getting only smaller, as on the back of Alberto, they are getting even closer together, nearly on top of each other, but not quite. Matteo finding himself slipping back massively, as back in P13, you see AMG with another spin at the same corner, potentially making contact with that Aston Martin.
Oh, on the last lap, that's got to be a punch in the gut you don't want to experience. Regardless, the battles up in front continue. Nemesis trying to get as close to Christoph as he can. Suki Unoda trying to make the pass on track nice and fair and square against Krisu. But right now, we got Michael Heidrich coming along. But at the back, Suki Unoda makes that pass after all on Krisu. Up into the P2, fair and square, even regardless of those time penalties. But Chris was still breathing down his gearbox. Regardless, it's this man, Michael Heidrich. What a race he's driven across the final corner and across the finish line. Michael Heidrich wins the Las Vegas GP of WOR League Tier 5. And what a way to start the season with a spectacular win at that. Suki Unoda wraps up the race, P2, close behind his teammate as he started it. Zozo wraps up the podium up in P3. What a race this has been, and what a way to start it off as Red Bull drivers here in WR League. Michael Heidrich and Suki Unoda, 1 and 2.
Yeah, then it's Zozo in P number 3, Ken Fisher P number 4, but squabbling for that last P7 spot outside of the leading constructors. We see 3 abreast between the Ferrari, RB and Mercedes just before that last bend, leading through into that final short shoot to the line. But we watch it on screen, but the attention is and the praise should go to the RB duo and the dominance by Heidrich in this first race out.
Yeah, I mean, credit to Suki Unoda too. I mean, what a comeback. You know, he was down the order, and to make that climb back up and come the final lap, even regardless of Chris's time penalties, he still finished up in front. That's the kind of races you're here commentating for. That's the kind of races you're here watching as well. That's why you're here. And I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I'm sure you did too. We saw quite a lot of battles, and that's the kind of podium I hope we see often. Nice, fair racing, elbows out, side to side, as you'd imagine. Gets me going. I wonder what's to come for the rest of the season.
What a wonder we have on our hands. Next time out, we will be going to Silverstone for the WOR. It's been great to commentate this race with you. What was the name again? Sorry, if you want to say it one last time.
Zetaxter, but Jess Z works for you.
Zetaxter, and I'm Weltorium. We will see you next time here at the WOR. Brought to you by Grid Finder and Next Level of Racing Aids. When we'll see you next time out. But maybe it won't be us on tier number 5.